Are you dreaming of a snowy Christmas in the Rocky Mountains? December in Rocky Mountain National Park can be absolutely magical, but there are some things you should be aware of to have the best visit possible. So in this video, I'll bring you up to speed on what you can expect for weather, crowds, wildlife, activities, and more. Well, let's start by looking at the typical weather for December. But as we do this, remember that every year is different. What I'm about to share is based on my last 20 years of living at the edge of the park. But since weather rarely cooperates, this year will probably be a little different. Generally, December is one of the coldest and also driest months of the entire year. Down in Estes Park, which is at an elevation of about 7,500 feet, the average high temperature in December is 36 degrees, with an average low of 18. However, the temperature up at Bear Lake will be much colder, since it's about 2,000 feet higher. You will usually experience a 10 to 20 degree drop in temperature as you head up to Bear Lake. The drop in temperatures can be even more extreme when you factor in the strong winds you'll often experience up there, so dress warmly. As I mentioned, December is one of the driest months of the year. We usually get a little snow in December, but you should expect Estes Park and the lower meadows of Rocky Mountain National Park to be mostly snow-free in December. However, if you drive up to Bear Lake, you'll find yourself in a beautifully snowy world. That's because the wind blows the snow off of the high peaks and down into the trees. So while the high mountains and the low areas of the park may be snow-free, this subalpine zone just below the mountains may have a couple of feet of powdery snow in the forest. During Christmas, Bear Lake typically has about 28 inches of snow, so this is where you'll want to head if you want to enjoy a snowy Christmas. The other place where you're likely to find snow is on the west side of Rocky Mountain National Park, such as around the town of Grand Lake. Now, this area usually has quite a bit more precipitation, and it also has a lot less wind. So if you're looking for a winter wonderland in December, your best bet besides Bear Lake is the west side of Rocky Mountain National Park. However, to get there, you will need to drive the long way around via Interstate 70, as the roads connecting the east and west sides of the park are closed at this time of year. Now, December tends to be a very windy month in the park, though that can be said for most of the months between October and March. In the winter, the jet stream seems to settle right over Rocky Mountain National Park, and the mountains pull those high winds down and into the east side of the park. This means that the winds at lower elevations are often gusting over 30 miles an hour during the winter, while higher up they can be extreme. In fact, in 1981, a wind speed indicator was installed on Longs Peak to record the winter winds. The wind speed indicator only lasted 75 days up there, and 13 of those days had winds averaging above 100 miles an hour. The final recording it made was 201 miles an hour. We don't know if the winds got any stronger because the anemometer was destroyed by those winds. So wind really is a serious factor in the winter, especially for the east side of Rocky Mountain National Park. On those days when the wind is really howling and you can see the trees bending, then you'll want to stay out of the forest due to the risk of falling trees. And you'll also want to avoid climbing the high peaks, as on those really windy days, the winds are strong enough to pick you up and throw you into the rocks. So choose less windy days for your high mountain adventures. Now, in terms of activities, during the month of December, and usually through January, you'll find the towns of Estes Park and Grand Lake dressed up in their Christmas finest, with wonderful lights throughout the downtown areas. This sets a magical mood for this wonderful time of year. It can be fun to explore the many small shops in each of these gateway towns. Now, one of the best things to do in the winter season is to head up to Bear Lake with snowshoes. These can be rented from the Estes Park Mountain Shop or from other outdoor stores in Estes Park. Now, snowshoes will keep you on top of the snow and also give you a good grip on the ice. Now, one of my favorite hikes to do in the winter is from Bear Lake up to Lake Bierstadt. It's such a peaceful hike through the snowy forest. Now, if it hasn't snowed up there in a while, then you may want to rent microspikes instead. They slip over your boots and will let you walk up icy trails with ease. Now, if it is a year where we've had quite a good amount of snow, then you may be able to do some sledding at Hidden Valley just off of Trail Ridge Road. Hidden Valley is the only place in the park where sledding is allowed. It's perfect for young kids and has a warming house with bathrooms right next to the slopes. Just be aware that this sledding hill is very exposed to the wind, and so it's best done on days when the wind isn't blowing too hard. Sleds can be rented from the Estes Park Mountain Shop. Again, if it's a very snowy December, as occasionally happens, then backcountry skiing is also an option for those who are willing to put in the work. Since we don't have chairlifts in the national park, you have to make your own way up to the top of the mountain before skiing down. Now, one of the most popular places to do this is also at Hidden Valley. It usually takes about an hour, hour and a half to ski to the top, and then just 15 minutes to ski back down. Well, all year long you can see wildlife in Rocky Mountain National Park. However, during the winter, some animals are hibernating and some are a little bit more difficult to find. During the month of December, you'll often find elk grazing at the edges of the large meadows. Mule deer can usually be found on the side of Deer Mountain, just along Trail Ridge Road. And you'll often see turkey wandering some of the streets in Estes Park, particularly on the west side of town near Mary's Lake Road. Occasionally, you'll find bighorn sheep just outside of the park along Fall River Road, as well as down Highway 34 near the little town of Drake. Now, in terms of visitation, the first half of December is fairly quiet, but visitation increases quite a bit as we get close to Christmas and New Year. Weekdays are pretty quiet during most of December, but most weekends can get pretty busy, especially up at Bear Lake and Glacier Gorge. Now, once we hit the holidays, then it is pretty busy on most days, but still nothing like the summer crowds. Now, at this time of year, you will not need a timed entry permit. Those are only needed during the summer and autumn months. Well, here are a couple other things you should be aware of when visiting Rocky Mountain National Park in December. As I already mentioned, Trail Ridge Road and Old Fall River Road are both closed for the winter. If you want to travel between the east and west sides of Rocky Mountain National Park, you'll have to take a 3-hour drive around the mountains to get there. Also, when you come, I really recommend that you drive or that you rent a vehicle with proper snow tires and, if possible, with all-wheel drive, as that will give you the best traction. Also, be aware that the national park often implements a traction law when the roads are snowy or icy. And when that law is in effect, the park only allows vehicles into the park that have proper tires for snow and ice, or alternatively, snow chains. Well, those are the basics of what you need to know when visiting in December. If you come prepared, you'll have a fantastic time. And while you're here, stop by my gallery in Estes Park to warm up and say hello. Also, stop by if you have any questions that I didn't answer in this video. We'd be glad to help. Well, thanks so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you out on the trail or in the next video. To help you prepare for your visit to Rocky Mountain National Park, visit my website, rockymountainnationalpark.com. For hiking guides, calendars, coffee table books, and more, visit rockytrailpress.com. And when you arrive, be sure and stop by my gallery in downtown Estes Park. It's called Images of RMNP.